Good afternoon. Two things. One, there are no pictures of naked women, or indeed anything like that in my presentation. I think the previous two covered that with Will's mum and Erica. And secondly, I was burgled recently, and and all my slides involving Pippa Middleton's arse, all my screenshots, are stolen. So it's actually now about Pippa Middleton's underwear, which I do still have screenshots for, but no photos. Cool. So, a bit about me. I produce slides which have weird overlays over them, so they can't be read. I have no idea what that is. Anyway, I'm Malcolm Coles and I help people with their SEO occasionally. According to Google, I'm one of the most irritating bloggers on the planet. I'm a computer freak. If any of you are German, you can guess what that means. And this is a continuation of a talk I gave on Brighton last time, and that was about Karen Gillan's underwear, and as a result of that I also ranked for Desperate Bunch of Sad Pervs. Which should really be you lot. But I'm going to hope that all my slides haven't got a weird table running down them. Yes. Right, so straw poll. Who thinks that Google filters out duplicate content when it comes across it? No one. Come on, wake up. So it's 3 of you. Who thinks that Google penalises you for duplicate content in some way? About 13 of you. Who's asleep? Quite a lot of you. And who thinks you can use duplicate content to dominate the top of Google's search results and clean up all of the listings on page 1? So me and that bloke there. You're not supposed to put your hand up. So, pander aside, if you're talking, which I am, and talking about kind of news searches, the moment there's a kind of new news event, so an earthquake or a royal wedding, you get a bunch of search terms that haven't been searched for before, and obviously people creating content around that stuff, there was no links to that. So, when there's a kind of bank of new search terms, Google just kind of sucks up all the new content, and over the medium term, obviously it'll spot things that are the same, so if you've got duplicate content, it'll remove the duplicates. And obviously if you put 301 redirects on your content, if you've got a bit of content here and you redirect it to another URL, eventually Google will recrawl this, notice it points over here, and throw that URL out of its index. So that's what happens in the medium term. So what happens in the short term if you repeatedly publish the same content on slightly different URLs and then redirect the earlier ones to the later ones? Now I don't actually suggest you do this, but I'm going to show you what happened when I did it. So, at the last Brighton SEO, I gave a talk about how you can optimise for news and trending search terms, and I was using examples like snoods banned, if you remember that, and also at what time is the Carling Cup? Very popular search term just before the Carling Cup was on. And somebody stood up and asked me what the point was. And I said, well, it's just an experiment. So this time I thought, right, I'm going to show whoever that was, I'm going to show how you can take a normal WordPress blog, which was mine, which gets about 1,000 page views a day on a good day. And if you try and optimise it for news search terms, what will that lead to? And so the 2 tests I did were Pippa Middleton's arse, which became her underwear, and super injunctions and Twitter and footballers, which was all about Ryan Giggs and Imogen Thomas and that sort of thing. This is the graph that shows the traffic from my blog in the 2 weeks I did this. So as you can see, it trundled along at 1,000 page views, then it went up to about 20-odd thousand, 15,000, then it shot up to 30,000. That was the day that Ryan Giggs was revealed to be having an affair with Imogen Thomas. And then once I'd finished this experiment, it went back to 1,000. Obviously, if I'd carried on this, I think Cheryl Cole was axed from the X Factor shortly after this. That was going to be my next one, but my wife objected to me getting up every morning and writing about this stuff, so I had to stop. But, so this is my blog is a blog about SEO, and I have just picked 2 random news search terms, and I have increased my traffic 30-fold. And this is how I did it. So I used Google Autocomplete most mornings. I would type in Pippa Middleton, or I would type in super injunction, and I would see what Google was suggesting that people were searching for. And I was using Google Insights as well to watch traffic, because it usually goes up to 1 or 2 days ago, so you can see how search terms are rising or falling in popularity. And then over the course of about 2 weeks, I wrote about 20 blog posts, all of which followed a fairly standard format. They were like, Pippa Middleton's arse, : some angle I've chosen to take on it. so to speak. And then I kind of linked all the posts together, and I set up tags for the targeted search terms and all that kind of standard stuff. And then I occasionally went on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter back in May, you'd have noticed me going, can anyone retweet this post about Pippa Middleton's underwear pictures for me? And occasionally people did that. And that does seem to help get your content crawled more quickly, but that's a whole other talk. Anyway, but the crucial thing I did was this thing at the bottom. So fiddle's probably an inappropriate word, given what I'm talking about. But anyway, I would publish something on a URL, then I would change the URL to a new one, different one, and I would 301 redirect the first URL to the second one. And then I would do it again. And I will explain a bit more for those of you who don't know what the hell I'm talking about in a minute. But effectively, this is what I did. So I typed super injunctions or Twitter into Google, and these lists would appear. And then and this graph shows how the search terms changed over the sort of 10 days, 2 weeks. So that was a big story. You can't actually read them, I imagine, at the back. But the top one, nor can I actually. The top one is super injunction, Twitter, super injunction names, all the way down to Fred Goodwin affair. If you typed Fred Goodwin into Google, it would tell you in the auto-suggest who he was having an affair with, even though the newspapers were banned from reporting it. And then down to footballer injunction at the end. And you can see, these are all on the same time axis, you can see how the story developed and different search terms appeared that had never been searched for before. And I did the same thing with Pippa Middleton, because, well, who'd heard of her before the royal wedding? But so it started off all about her dress. Then it was about her arse, almost instantly. Then it became about her underwear, because there was a picture released in America of her on the beach with her cousin or something, dancing in what was actually a bikini, not her underwear, but anyway. And then this, you can see, so the royal wedding was on the Friday, so as you can see on the Thursday, nobody was searching for Pippa Middleton's arse or dress. By Friday, lots of people were searching about the dress and a few about her behind. And by Saturday, the behind was beginning to catch up with the dress. And then these are the traffic graphs, these are the search query graphs for Pippa Middleton's arse and Pippa Middleton's underwear. And you can see how it rapidly tailed off from being about the arse on Saturday, and it was all about the underwear for the rest of that week. Clearly, just don't blame me. These are people searching this graph. It's not my fault. And I don't know if you can read the axis, but like the underwear axis goes up to 200,000 searches, so it's quite a lot of people looking for this stuff all of a sudden. So, hands up who doesn't know what a 301 redirect is, or is still asleep. So a couple of you. So a redirect is just a way, if you pitch up at a URL, it's a way of your server going, this isn't the correct URL, anyone who comes to this URL, let's actually serve up this URL, so you'll notice your browser bar will change to the correct one. And I was doing on some WordPress, and there's a little kind of thing about how WordPress matches URLs. So you have to pay attention at this bit. So imagine you've got a URL which is A/AA, so not a lingerie one, obviously. It's just two letters, AA. And you've got no other URLs that begin with those two letters on your website. If you change the URL of that post from AA to AAB, i.e. you put one extra letter on the end, WordPress will automatically redirect the AA version to the AAB version. So if anyone tries to visit AA, they'll get automatically redirected to AAB, because that's what WordPress does. It's quite helpful like that. If you put in a partial URL, it will resolve it to the closest one it can find. And then if you changed AAB to AABC, so you just go into WordPress and in the URL field, add a character at the end, the same thing will happen. Anyone who tries to reach AA or AAB will go to AABC. So why am I banging on about, why am I banging on about letters? The answer is, you know those presentation things you get where you can see what the next slide is when it's coming along? I haven't got one of those. So they're suing me sometimes. Anyway, so what does this look like to Google? If you look down the bottom here, I'm going to have to walk over here and point. Yeah, roving microphones help with this sort of thing as well. So, you can see I've got two bits of content at the bottom for a search on Pippa Middleton's underwear, and the thing I just pointed at was the URL. So one of them ends in the word suggest, and the other one ends in the word suggests with an S at the end. So all I did was add the letter S at the end. And then a bit later on, I added the number 2. get a laser pointer next time. So those three results in Google's index are the same bit of content. There's only one post in WordPress. Whichever one of those URLs you click on, you go to my one bit of content. And WordPress is handling the redirects automatically. From Google's point of view, though, what happened was I published a thing called Pippa, the one at the bottom first. I pinged Google, it crawled it, put it in its index, because it was like, there's not much content about this and everyone's searching for it. Then I pinged it again and went, look, I've got more content about this. And then I pinged it again and went, look, I've got more content about this. At this point, Google hadn't yet filtered out the duplicates. It hadn't recrawled the first URLs to notice that they redirected. It thought I had 3 bits of content. A bit later on, if you can see, it noticed that the first one, the auto-suggest URL, was redirecting to the later one, so it took the first one out of its index. And eventually, of course, it recrawled all the URLs and went, hang on, 2 of these don't exist, they redirect to the third one, and this is the long-term effect. I now rank first for Pippa Middleton's underwear. Go me. But the URL there is the auto-suggests to one. So over time, it filtered out the URLs that I don't know why it did. It either recognised them as duplicates, or it noticed the redirects, and it took them out of its index. If I go back to this, so 200,000 people searched on a day for that, and I had 3 of the top 5 results, all for one bit of content. During the course of this, there's a guy from the Daily Mail or the Metro here. During the course of this, the Mail and the Metro were also producing content about Pippa Middleton's underwear. Frankly, getting in the way of my SEO experiment, but there we go. Those of you that look very closely at that Mail result may wonder exactly what's going on there as well. Oh yeah, respect to the Daily Mail. At one point they had the top 5 results for search on Pippa Middleton underwear pictures. So they're even better at SEO than me. What did that mean? Well, so it didn't take me very long to produce that content, and it took me about 2 minutes, if that, to go into the URL field and start appending characters. So over the course I did it, I got 300,000 page views, and you can actually see in the analytics the 2 different URLs. If you look at number 1, it's Pippa Middleton's underwear picture, Google updates its auto-suggest. And if you look at number 5, it's the other version of that. So you can see I got loads of traffic to both, 50,000, 22,000, because both were showing up in Google's index. And the other thing that happened, which was a little bit unexpected, was I got loads of links to my blog about super injunctions and about Pippa Middleton's arse, including off like the New Statesman and Popbitch and anorak.co.uk, as well as a bunch of blogs. Carly Wood, if she's here, pippamiddleton.co.uk. If you're at the top of Google's results, people just kind of lazily, who want to link to something about something, just kind of, Google it, pull out the first result that looks relevant and shoves it in a blog post as a way of explaining. So I was getting loads of links from places just naturally having done this. And that's not a very good example, but I was also getting loads of traffic from Twitter searches. If you can get this stuff retweeted, people were searching Twitter for like Pippa Middleton terms, seeing the tweets about it and following through. So I was getting quite a lot of traffic that way as well. One thing to be aware of, however, is that when you change the URL, and you probably could develop around this, but when you change the URLs in WordPress like this, because they're new new URLs, all of your social media accounts will reset. So my very first version of Pippa Middleton's underwear pictures have got up to 69 tweets and 44 likes. And when I reset the URL to a different one, those numbers went back to 0. So that is one thing to watch out for. And there's various other methods you can use to get the same content into Google's index on the short term. So you can publish on subdomains. So Yahoo, for instance, publishes newsy sports stories on both sport.yahoo.com and news.yahoo.com. Eventually, Google tends to chuck one of those away. In the very short term, they often pop up twice. If you include a parameter or tracking code in a Google News sitemap for a URL, sometimes those URLs will get into Google's index in the short term as well as your main one. You can publish comments on a different page. I used to have a screenshot of Peach's Geldof orgy, for which the Sun had the first and second web results, because its comment pages are on a different URL but have the same HTML title. and because that had never been searched for until the day she went to an orgy. All morning the Sun had the top 2 web results as a result. Anyway, you can probably think up your own. But in practice, this is quite a lot of effort to go to. But if you've got the sort of site on which you can write about newsy things without it being a bit weird, I've basically broken my blog. If you Google my name, you get a mega site link now, which is Pippa Middleton's underwear, which isn't really great for me personally, but there we go. But if you've got the sort of site in which you can chase after news terms, little tricks like this, which basically break Google, little tricks like this can make quite a difference to your traffic. I worked out if I carried on like that, I'd have something like 10 million page views a year, and I thought I probably should, and I could like sell my website or something. But there we go. So, and none of this seems to get affected by Panda. So this was all after Panda had rolled out in the UK. Obviously Google doesn't like duplicate content, but I don't think this is duplicate content. This is just you're rewriting some URLs and doing some redirects. So in the medium term, you don't have duplicate content. You do have it in the short term, which is when everyone's searching. So for those of you who can't work out what the hell I was going on about, Kelvin will now hand you the microphone. Biko, if you want to, there's a post of all this I've just published on my blog, and you can follow me on Twitter. I don't normally talk about this sort of thing, so it's fairly safe. Actually, I do.
Any hands up?
Because likes and +1s don't follow a 301 redirect, would it have been possible to change H1s and H2s and not really bother about changing the rest of the content? Would that have still had the same effect?
No, because you need to get, for it to work, if you want to do it, for it to work, you need to get multiple URLs into Google's index, so you have to have it on separate URLs. You could actually cheat, and I think if you keep the URL of your Facebook button pointing at the original one, I don't think Facebook cares in the short term, so that was beyond my WordPress abilities to make that happen, but it should be fairly easy for someone who's better at coding than me.
But it really does depend on changing the URL?
Yes.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions? Oh.
Hi there. Great stuff, thank you very much. Just wondering, did you try to get any results in Google News directly?
No, so I should have pointed this out actually. My blog is not in Google News. And you know, if you're not in Google News, it's often quite difficult for news search terms, because what will happen is Google will come along and shove a news box at the top of the results, and everyone will click on that. So I can't get in Google News. I've got a one-person blog; it won't let me in. Damn it. But so this, admittedly, technique you probably shouldn't use, is a way of working around that. You can like get into the multiple results in the web results, even if you're not allowed in the Google News box.
Okay. Just on Google News, with respect to the last presentation as well about URLs having, I think it's a 5-digit number required.
Fantastic. Any other questions?
Slightly bizarrely, there was a 20-minute gap in the agenda between the end of the last speaker and the start of me, so I could carry on talking for another 20 minutes if you like.
That was Gareth's.
I've run out of slides, so I can't.
That is good news though, because it means there's a bit longer time for lunch. So people realise, let me make sure I get the right time for everyone coming back. As I said, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of restaurants.